Goreng awakens in a cold, concrete cell, the number 48 etched into the wall. The cell is sparse, with nothing more than a bed, a sink, and a gaping hole in the floor. His cellmate, Trimagesi, refers to this hole as the pit, and it becomes clear that this is no ordinary prison. This is the vertical self-management center, a place where survival is dictated by how far down you are. There are hundreds of levels, each with 2 prisoners assigned by the mysterious management. The pit connects all of them, and every day, food descends on a platform through the hole. The higher you are, the more food you get. But if you're too far down, the scraps that remain may not be enough to keep you alive. You have just 2 minutes to eat as much as you can before the platform moves to the next floor. Once it's gone, you have to wait for the next day, and there's no guarantee there will be anything left. Goreng watches as the platform arrives for the first time, laden with half-eaten remains. Instead of indulging, he refuses to eat. His mind races with thoughts of fairness and compassion. Perhaps if he leaves some food for the people below, they'll survive too. But Trimagesi, hardened by the system, scoffs at this idealism. He eats ravenously, finishing his meal by spitting on the table, a gesture that disgusts Goreng. Goreng, still unwilling to succumb to the grim reality of his environment, tries to keep an apple for later. As soon as the platform departs, the cell begins to heat up, the walls burning with an intensity that threatens to kill them both. Panicked, Goreng tosses the apple back down the hole. It's the first of many lessons. Keeping food is forbidden, and the punishment for defiance is death. As Goreng struggles to understand the nature of this place, memories of his interview to enter the facility flash through his mind. He had volunteered, believing 6 months here would earn him a diploma, a means to a better life. Each prisoner was allowed to bring 1 item with them, and Goreng, in a symbol of his hope and intelligence, chose a copy of Don Quixote. But in the pit, books seem as useless as ideals. Trimagesi, meanwhile, shows no sign of remorse for the path that led him here. His crime was born of rage, an advertisement for a knife that he purchased with excitement, only for a newer model to be released shortly after. The frustration consumed him, leading him to hurl his television out of his apartment window, killing a man below. Faced with a choice between a psychiatric institution and this prison, he chose the pit. The days begin to blur together as Goreng watches the brutal reality of the pit unfold. He learns that the lowest level Trimagesi has been on is 132, but even he isn't sure how many floors exist beneath that. Food never reaches those depths, and those trapped there must endure unimaginable hunger. Goreng's attempts to rally those above and below him, urging them to ration food, are met with cold indifference. Trimagesi, in contrast, responds with casual cruelty, urinating into the hole. It's a vicious cycle of survival where the strong prey on the weak, both physically and mentally. Trimagesi reveals that his chosen item was the very knife he bought before his descent into madness. This prized possession would soon serve a more sinister purpose. Goreng, finally worn down, starts eating the scraps left on the platform, though his idealism remains faintly intact. Then, in a horrifying display, they witness a prisoner from an upper level fall through the hole. Death here is so common that no one reacts. It's just another part of the system. The psychological tension between Goreng and Trimagesi grows. Trimagesi's time in the pit has turned him into a survivor at all costs, and Goreng, naive at first, is starting to see the darkness creeping into his soul. When the platform next arrives, it carries an unexpected passenger, a woman named Miharu, silent and battered, sitting amidst the half-eaten food. Goreng is immediately concerned for her, but Trimagesi warns him against getting involved. Miharu, he explains, descends the pit every month in search of her child, killing her cellmates to improve her odds of reuniting with them. The man they saw falling was likely her latest victim. Despite Trimagesi's dismissive attitude, Goreng can't shake the sense of empathy he feels for Miharu. When other prisoners try to take advantage of her, Goreng screams at them to stop, but his intervention isn't needed. Miharu kills them swiftly and efficiently before returning to the platform. As the month ends, the prisoners are put to sleep with gas and shuffled to new levels. Goreng wakes, disoriented, to find himself tied to his bed on floor 171, a floor far below where food is ever likely to reach. Trimagesi, knife in hand, explains that he's bound Goreng because he knows the younger man is stronger. He's been through this before. He knows what it takes to survive at this depth. The screams from neighboring cells confirm that others are also waking to a new nightmare. For days, Goreng languishes, starving, as the platform brings nothing but empty plates. Trimagesi's demeanor darkens, and after 8 long days, he tells Goreng that it's finally time for him to eat. The gleam in his eyes makes Goreng's blood run cold as he realizes what this means. Trimagesi plans to eat him, starting with his thigh. Goreng's pleas for mercy fall on deaf ears as Trimagesi slices into him, savoring the prospect of survival. But just as the first cuts are made, the platform descends again, carrying Miharu with it. In a sudden, violent act, she springs into action, recognizing the kindness Goreng showed her. With brutal efficiency, she attacks Trimagesi with his own knife, bringing a swift and bloody end to his life. Goreng lies bound to the bed, pain throbbing in his leg. When he wakes, the room feels eerily different. He's back on the bed, his leg bandaged with a torn piece of sheet. He glances over and sees Miharv crouched over Trimagesi's lifeless body. Horrified, Goreng realizes she's eating him. With cold efficiency, Miharv slices off a piece of flesh and offers it to Goreng. He recoils at first, but hunger gnaws at him. After a brief, tense pause, he accepts. Her eyes reveal nothing as she also brings him water, and without a word, she rides the platform down, leaving Goreng in a grotesque silence. Days crawl by. Trimagesi's body begins to rot, the stench invading the cell. Goreng is left with only worms to feed on, and they become his only source of sustenance. As the decay spreads, his mind starts to unravel. Hallucinations plague him, with Trimagesi's ghost haunting his thoughts, judging him for every bite he takes. The ghost lingers, watching, mocking, always reminding him of his moral decay. The month ends, and a new form of torment arrives. Gas floods the cell, lulling Goreng into a deep, surreal dream. In the haze of his subconscious, he finds himself with a woman, her warmth a brief respite from the hell he's living in. But as his dream dissolves, the warmth turns into something unexpected, a dog's tongue, licking him awake. His shock is compounded when he realizes he has a new cellmate. Imagiri, the very woman who interviewed him when he volunteered for this prison. The dog she brought as her item now wanders the cell. They are on level 33. The irony doesn't escape Goreng. Imagiri explains her presence. Like him, she had volunteered. But unlike him, she had no idea the true horrors of the place. She speaks with a cold sense of hope, believing there are only 200 levels. Goreng, now wiser to the brutal system, tells her the truth. There isn't enough food to sustain the entire population. Imagiri's response is both idealistic and naive. Solidarity, she says, is the answer. If everyone only ate what they needed, there would be enough for all. But Goreng is skeptical. He questions whether change could ever happen, musing whether the death of a child would force people to rethink their ways. Imagiri is adamant that the system would never allow children under 16 into this nightmare. Despite her stubborn optimism, Goreng remains unconvinced. When the platform arrives with food, Imagiri demonstrates her belief in solidarity, taking only what she needs and rationing the rest. She even sets aside a portion for her dog. With determination, she prepares 2 rations for the lower levels and shouts down to them, trying to pass on her message of rationing and cooperation. But her efforts are met with silence, her cries ignored. Goreng watches, his cynicism growing, convinced that the administration never intended for solidarity to flourish here. Imagiri's persistence grates on Goreng, who grows weary of her daily attempts at reform. Finally, in a fit of frustration, he threatens the prisoners below. Follow her instructions, or he'll defile the food with his excrement. The crude threat works. The message is passed along, if only out of fear. Their temporary peace is shattered when the platform brings Miharu again, this time unconscious. Goreng and Imagiri tend to her, giving her a place on the bed. But while they sleep, disaster strikes. The dog steals food, breaking the delicate balance of the system. The cell's temperature plummets, a chilling punishment for breaking the rules. In a panic, Goreng chases the dog, recovering the stolen food just in time to avoid freezing to death. When dawn breaks, another horror unfolds. Miharu, savage in her survival, kills the dog to eat it. Imagiri is horrified, but Goreng only watches as Miharu silently departs on the platform the next day, her search for her child continuing. Goreng shares Miharu's tragic quest with Imagiri, but she dismisses it as fiction. Miharu had arrived alone, 10 months ago. She had no family, and her background was far from the desperate mother she presented. She was an actress who volunteered, just like Goreng. Imagiri's own despair surfaces. She reveals that her time working for the administration was filled with ignorance. She sent people here without realizing the horrors of the place. Cancer had been her companion for 3 years, and when she lost the battle, she decided to come here, foolishly thinking she could make a difference. But now, her spirit is broken, and she no longer cares. On the last day of their time, on level 33, Goreng urges Imagiri to eat. They may not see food again for weeks, but she's too far gone, her body refusing to leave the bed. The following morning, Goreng wakes to find himself on level 202. The sheer depth of the system is too much for Imagiri, and she takes her life, hanging herself with her bed sheets. As Goreng reels from the loss, Trimagesi's ghost returns, mocking him again. This time, he's joined by Imagiri, and together they taunt Goreng. They suggest that he eat her body, that survival demands sacrifice. Goreng tries to resist, focusing on distractions. He eats pages from his book, and carves lines on the walls to count the days. But the hunger gnaws at him, an insidious force that slowly breaks him down. In the end, Starvation wins. Guided by Trimagesi's haunting voice, Goreng gives in and begins to feed on Imagiri's body. Goreng awakens in a cold sweat, his heart racing as he finds himself on the 6th level. Relief washes over him. He's much higher than before, a better chance at survival. But as his eyes adjust to the dim light, his relief is short-lived. On the opposite bed is Miharu, the woman who rides the platform searching for her child. She stands menacingly over him, a knife in hand, and without a word, she lunges. But before it can connect, Goreng jolts awake. It was just a nightmare. His real cellmate is Bahara, a man filled with hope and determination, gripping a rope, the one item he brought with him into this nightmarish world. Bahara is excited, convinced that from their current level, he can climb to the top. He turns to the prisoners on the level above, asking for their help to pull him up. His optimism is infectious, but the pair above merely taunts him before finally agreeing. As Bahara begins his ascent, his hope quickly turns to horror. The woman above him defecates on his face mid-climb, sending him crashing back down in shock and disgust. Goreng manages to catch him before he hits the ground, but the rope is gone, swallowed by the darkness of the hole. As they eat, the sound of the prisoners above indulging in their own pleasures reverberates through the room, a stark reminder of the cruelty that thrives in this place. Days blend into one another, and Goreng's mind begins to unravel under the pressure. Hallucinations plague him. Trimagesi, his first cellmate, and Imagiri, the woman who once worked for the very system that imprisoned them, appear in his waking moments. Trimagesi mocks him, claiming he's doing well, just one more month to endure. Imagiri, on the other hand, urges him to act, to remember that change requires more than just endurance. Stirred by these visions, Goreng formulates a desperate plan. He approaches Bahara with his idea. They'll ride the platform down, forcing everyone to ration the food so that the people at the lower levels can eat. Goreng had done the math during his time on level 202 and believes there are around 250 levels in total. If they can control the food distribution, perhaps they can make it work. Bahara agrees, and together they break apart their bed to fashion makeshift weapons from the metal frame. When the platform arrives, they jump on and descend to level 7. Goreng insists that they stop people from taking any food. Those on the higher levels eat regularly and will do so again soon. Their real concern is the lower levels, the ones starving to death. Bahara hesitates, recognizing some of the prisoners as friends who helped him climb in previous weeks. But when one of them reacts with fury at being denied food, Bahara sees the truth in Goreng's words and joins in enforcing their plan. They descend level by level, threatening prisoners to keep them from touching the food. At one point, they come across Brambang, an old man whom Bahara respects. Brambang, calm and wise, acknowledges their efforts but warns them of the futility. The administration won't care about their success, he says, but perhaps they can send a message to those working on level 0. They need a symbol, something luxurious and untouched to prove their point. They choose the panna cotta, an exquisite dish, and vow to protect it as they continue their descent. The lower they go, the more harrowing the scenes they witness. On level 96, they find an old man and a mentally disabled boy. The boy coldly informs them that he'll kill the old man to eat him later. Goreng tries to feed the old man some soup, but the futility of the situation is stark. The platform descends further, and they discover a body. Goreng recognizes it as the level where Miharu must have awakened. He's beginning to doubt his calculations. There are clearly more than 250 levels. As they continue down, they stumble upon a brutal scene. 2 men attacking Miharu. One wields a sword, and the other is large and terrifying. Bahara and Goreng jump into the fray, but it's a vicious fight. Bahara manages to kill his opponent and helps Goreng with the other man, but it's too late. Miharu is dead. Goreng is consumed with grief, wanting to mourn her, but Bahara drags him back onto the platform before it moves away without them. They resume their mission, handing out food to those who remain alive on the lower levels. Many floors contain only corpses, evidence of the system's cruelty. Finally, the platform stops at level 333, the final level. At first glance, it appears empty, but upon closer inspection, they find Molly, the child Miharu had been searching for, hiding under the bed. As they step off the platform to approach her, it continues its descent into the void below. Goreng suggests throwing the panna cotta into the hole as a symbol, but Bahara refuses. They are stunned when the room neither heats nor cools, indicating they haven't been punished. After a tense moment of indecision, Bahara offers the panna cotta to Molly, giving the child a chance at life. Goreng, now haunted by the ghosts of Trimagesi, Imagiri, and Miharu, feels the weight of his choices. Bahara, weakened by his injuries, echoes the voices of the dead, agreeing that the child is the true message. When Goreng wakes, he finds Bahara dead, his wounds having claimed him during the night. Alone, Goreng takes Molly with him onto the platform when it returns. As they are lowered into the darkness of level 0, the space is desolate, void of any hope or authority. Trimagesi appears again, urging Goreng to step off the platform. His role is finished. He isn't the message. Together, they watch the platform ascend into the abyss, with Molly as the final hope, the living symbol meant to expose the truth to those above. And that's the chilling journey through the platform, a harrowing look at humanity, survival, and the dark side of society's systems. If this suspenseful thriller kept you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Movies Unboxed for more gripping movie recaps.